Alrighty. Hello, everybody. This is your humble shepherd reporting from orbit. And on today's flight path, we are headed to Earth, European Dead Zone. I believe just outside of Germany. And today we are going to introduce ourselves and discover the EDZ. So, let's get going. So, where I left off before I got started raiding and other stuff yesterday was doing a basic rundown of what it is to be a Guardian, what the different classes are, and all that kind of stuff. So, last time you guys got to see the Hunter. This time, you get to see the Warlock. If this thing loads. Yay! Cue laugh track. Anyways. So yeah. These are different classes. You have Void, Arc, and Dawnblade. And one could say that each of these are elemental, classes. But one of the interesting things is that, like Dawnblade, or like each class has their different like name and breakdown, and their different like, versions of how they utilize the class. So you have your initial use of it. So the light initially can you can channel it to produce, effects around you. Then you have the actual like focused, you've harnessed enough light, now you can actually cast your super. So casting your super leads into the different trees of using your super. That was an impulse thing. Anyways. As we wait to load. Okay, so. Also, a benefit is that you have grenades, which you generate using your powers from the light. You can also modify yourself to be able to use the light to be able to jump higher or float or, fly for the sky. I'm in the air, I can fly. Wait, which one do I want to use? We'll use this one. So yeah. I don't feel like Palpatining today. So, yeah, this is a Warlock. They work quite differently from a Hunter. Not terribly differently in that they're not super stronger, but what they make up for in lack of strength, they make up for in pure annoyance. They float through the air. They're surprisingly nimble. And for some reason, they can survive more than one hit from a punch. And I'm talking about like after you've already taken down their shields. For some reason, some Guardians don't go down after you punch them. I think that's a mod thing, and also one of these side aspects, which I don't usually prioritize until recently, just because I'm getting annoyed. So I have to adapt. But anyways, so you have your light level, which is, well, okay, yep, there you go. It's your power score, your power level. And basically, it talks about basically the amount of light or effect that your light can have, basically. If your light level is too low, you can't even affect certain enemies or do certain things or go into certain areas because you would not be able to sustain yourself and your powers, which are kind of a byproduct of this little handy-dandy little guy, who I call Higgins, across the board. Every ghost is Higgins. Every ghost that's mine is Higgins. Don't ask me why. Anyways. So yeah. Your light level basically gives you a good idea of what you can handle. You don't want to fight anything that's higher light level than you. Though oftentimes, I kind of want to. Your mobility is how much your light, or not necessarily your light, but how much your native speed is, and then it's modified by the traits that you pick up utilizing in your armor. So your armor is infused with light as well. In fact, most of your armor, I believe, is generated through not generate it through hard light, because obviously it's like, you know, matter, substance. But the whole point of the anagram process, which, do I have any anagrams to show you guys? I might. Hopefully I do. No, nope. But anyways, if I had an anagram, I'd show you it here. It'd be a giant glowing orb. So if I had an anagram, and I was showing you an anagram, it would basically be a ball of hard light that has a bunch of compiled information within it that you can utilize in order to pretty much 3D print, live 3D print material into this reality. If you were to do that, you'd have to find yourself with a bunch of weapons and stuff and armor. So the armor and stuff that you generate is partly a reflection of the light, but also partly a reflection of the general abilities of your ghost. And watch and wait. Excuse me, sir. I was told to introduce myself.
Let's bring them home, you and I, huh?
Sure.
Looking for something?
I was told to introduce myself. Ah, Guardian. Welcome to DDZ. Okay. Insert British voice and read that whole side bit over here. So, going back to what I was saying before. I'll get back to you, and I'll just stare at you awkwardly while you wait for me to respond. So yeah, your mobility is basically how fast you move, whether you're a speedy boy or slow boy. Resilience, how much damage you can take. Are you a stone or a leaf that gets blown off in the wind? Recovery, how fast you can recover. Are you going to be able to get smacked around and keep on moving, or are you just going to crumble? Discipline, are you able to throw things well? Are you able to hold your fire well, or are you just spamming bullets all over the place? Intellect, how fast you can actually be able to draw your super, how you can utilize your abilities quicker. Ah, that was well timed. Talking about super. And strength, how hard you can punch through somebody's chest and rip out their sternum. Anyways, without further ado, sorry, I'm trying to see if I want to switch anything. No, I don't really want to. Alright, yeah, we're sticking with this. So yeah, those are the classes. That's basic rundown of the Guardian's abilities. Showing you guys the ghost. Don't have an anagram to show you guys. Welcome to Earth. It sucks. This is Devrim. Ever the gentleman sniper, Devrim K holds fast in the wilds of the EDZ, and the European Dead Zone is this wonderful location here. In Destiny 1, we were based in Russia, but because of the Red War, we were pushed out into the EDZ until we could find a safe harbor up here in the farm. Now, maybe we'll make a trip up there in a second. I want to show you guys around the church first, which is in the Trossland. If you guys saw some footage, I think, earlier, I was in the Gulch, and then I went near Firebase Hades, but I don't think I recorded that footage when I was doing that. But, so, you have the three different armies that we're fighting. I'm going to have to go and explain them to you, though you saw a little bit of each and every one. The three main enemy or alien armies that we were introduced to when we were getting our feet back on the ground were the Legion, or not the Legion, but the Cabal, which were two different classes of Cabal. All of them are these giant rhinoceros type guys, kind of like the brutes from Halo. They arrived in our system, and they're conquerors. They're basically like the Roman, gladiators on crack. And so they rolled into our system, started taking over things. We kind of kicked off things when we got into Mars and started messing with their operations, and also started really messing up their plans with the Vex. So in a lot of ways, we kind of should have been expecting what happened with the Red War. We were just not expecting them to act so audaciously. But we should have seen the warning signs, because when we were on the Dreadnought in D1, we had the incident where I believe the Cabal sent off an emergency signal, and we had the warning signs that something might be jumping off. We didn't really know how or when, or we figured we'd have more warning, because usually they didn't show that much cunning. But yeah, no, when Gaul came in, he kind of kicked us in our crap, and we ended up having to move into here. When we moved into here, because the Red Legion, which had thrown a coup against Callus, who we now kind of work with for around, we do loot stuff for him, and we kill his robots because reasons. We are still dealing with a lot of strongholds. Firebase Hades is one such stronghold, and I believe it was mostly set up to kind of rout us and prevent us from being able to escape off the continent. Moving forward, though, you also have areas like the Dark Forest, the Fallen Hell territory, very thick with these alien creatures that are kind of jackalish. They are scavengers and pirates, once part of a noble civilization that used to be the previous holders of the light. Some of them still can hold the light. Some of them can use the darkness. So they usually have, but in general, they are aliens that have an affinity for technology. They have a preference for modifying themselves and their biology in order to gain strength. They also mutilate each other as punishment for failures and cultural taboos being broken. So you have a lot of tribalism that defines the Fallen and kind of keeps them separated. Whereas the Legion is separated by military ambitions and political angst, you have the Fallen separated more so by a sense of loss of self, loss of culture, loss of tradition, identity. And so they're really trying to struggle to put their own footing on the ground, and it kind of sucks that they're as trapped in this system now as we are. Anyways. Because we're on Earth, you don't really deal much with the Vex, though. Maybe we'll run that mission real quick. That way, maybe I can show you guys the Vex. Anyways, so yeah, this is Earth. At least one part of it. Okay, we'll talk about them when we go to each planet, so how about that? You get an introduction to the Cabal and the Fallen today. That's enough, class. I'm going to work. So yeah, this is Old Man Devrim Kay. Okay.
I've always had a morbid curiosity about how Guardians process death. The kind you don't return from. Then I saw the faces of those mourning Cayde.
Ouch.
Practically came to a standstill. The old boy charmed the pants off the place, and it showed. Death binds us all together, whoever we are. Guardians and non-Guardians alike. Now, what say we pour one out for our old friend, eh?
Yeah, I kind of need a moment now. That's actually kind of depressing. So yeah, the Red War happened about 2 years ago, I guess in the game time. Yeah, I'm gonna go get some tea. So yeah, damn, that really distracted me. That whole campaign thing kind of deserves like its own explanation. Actually, shoot, it's one of the videos I posted. It's probably one of the first game stream videos that's on here. But pretty much the whole Forsaken plot line is one long lesson in PTSD. And how people cope with it in different ways. And honestly, I would say it was the death of one of the best defined characters in there with really solid lore. Not that any other character doesn't have definition to them, it's just there's something about Nathan Fillion when he plays characters that just allows you to generally like the guy and kind of grow to associate him as like your battle buddy. So in a lot of ways, having Cayde so much in the plot was a really good experience, and also just being around him in the Vanguard. Like, honestly, one of the benefits of D1 is that you can just sit around and listen to Cayde. In fact, we're probably going to make a trip to D1 just to go listen to Cayde. In fact, I might do introductions through there, because, honestly, why not? It'd be fun. I kind of need a reason to revisit that world anyways. Or that reality or rendition of our technical past if I'm trying to stay in canon. So yeah, Forsaken happened because the Awoken, whom I told you about, have a giant prison called the Prison of Elders. The Prison of Elders was led by a person who was called the Queen of the Reef. The Queen of the Reef got into an incident when we happened to fight with an oncoming power called Oryx, who came inside our system working as part of a collective species called the Hive, a series of undead, necrophilic kind of insectoid species. They came into the system, rocked everybody's crap, parked outside of Saturn. We had to go on there and stop their plans from wrecking everybody. But the Queen came there first, and she kind of prevented them from going farther, so the Awoken kind of took the blunt of that blow. Devrim, I know you've been through this, but this is for the audience. Sorry, man. You could just go back to sniping if you wished. Hold on. Okay, fine. I'll grab the bounties first, and I'll let you get back to your business.
Goodbye, Guardian.
Are you just listening to me? Okay. So anyways. Just gonna go and read now. So anyways, let me look over my notes. So yeah, Oryx came into our galaxy, rocked everybody's crap in. During that whole process, the prison elders kind of came down to rogue bands of guardians who would go inside and clean up the place. I don't know what he was saying, but I hope it wasn't important. Anyways, so yeah, when prisoner elders kind of fell into our goals, I mean, we're idiots, so we kind of just only are in it for the loot. We don't really care about how things were running in the reef, so it really became down to Awoken, who would call us in to clean up things, while they clean up things around the back. What ended up happening is that there was a prison break. We got sent in with our vanguard, with a hunter vanguard named Cade 6. With Cade 6 leading the charge, us, Petravange, I believe the lieutenant, or like one of the Queen's lead captains, ended up going into the prisoner elders. We didn't realize that it was a prison break at first. We thought it was just a general, like, mass riot. So we were dealing with it like riot tactics. Then we realized it was a prison break, but the first person to reach it was our hunter vanguard. He got wrecked. And so in the process of getting wrecked, we couldn't revive him, because the only thing that can kill a guardian is the death of our ghost. You lose your Holy Spirit, you're fucked. So we went on a big vengeance spree. Some guardians finished that vengeance spree. Other guardians relented at the last second because they realized certain things. In the end, we released a giant curse upon the whole Awoken people. So, yeah. Oh, and we killed their prince.
Frustrating at times, but it was part of his charm.
That it was.
Quite shocked boot.
He really was.
Bring them home.
Anyways, so yeah, that was the whole Cade incident. Because of the Cade incident, there's a giant hole in the Vanguard where the hunters technically don't have a leader, and because of that, most hunters stay away from the tower. Because of that, this is why I'm wearing the Warlock garb, trying to, you know, lay low. Being genius out here, folks. Art of the skies. Anyways, so because we kind of already talked to this guy, and I don't really need to do these bounties, and I have to do a bunch of Earth missions anyways, I guess this is the church. Look at the church. It's a nice church. Fallen banner. Neato. Fallen skull. Oh wait, no, that's a hive skull. Super neato. Or is that a fallen skull? Maybe that's a scorn skull. No, that's fallen skull. No, that's a hive skull. I don't know. I don't know the alien taxonomy. Enemies. No, ally. He's killing everybody. So this is the... Oh god, that's fallen. Is this body there for me to zoom? Okay, no. So this is the fallen. That works. Damn it. Damn it! I don't have a grenade. Okay, well, then I'm gonna have to get you guys fresh bodies. So yeah. There we go. Fallen. Who are about to be destroyed, ruthlessly. Those are Shanks. cute little robots. They are the Fallen's attempt to mimic our Ghost. That's a floaty boy titan who's going on a rampage, because why not? Okay, so here's a drag. They got their arms cut off, or I believe they don't have an extra arm yet. I think most of their arms are cybernetic. I have to double check on that. These guys, though, they're cute. They try so hard. They really freaking try so hard. Sorry, you have to die for creative purposes. There we go. Well, that wasn't the one I wanted to kill, but anyways. So yeah, these guys, they're basically like humans, honestly. They're just kind of trying to survive. It's actually kind of rude to kill them. If you don't shoot me, I won't kill you. Well, you didn't shoot me. I'll give you that. Okay, really? Okay, don't cut me. Oh. I'm talking to an alien in a video game. Anyways, so yeah, that's the Fallen. The Cabal, ignore it. Oh god, yeah, he's dead anyways. Let's live for 5 more seconds. I'm trying to be merciful. Okay, there we go. Ah. So yeah, here you go. You got another one too. God, really? Every time. Well, anyways, let's go meet the Cabal. Giant Rhinos. So the Cabal are less pathetic. They're more annoying. More so in the kind of genocidal maniacs kind of way. They survive off of gas. That's usually kind of how they live on most planets. I don't remember what stuff they breathe. I don't know if it's like helium or something, but yeah. They tank pretty well. Thank you. And in general, they just kind of invade places and decimate any species and enslave them. The Fallen don't want to deal with that crap. We don't want to deal with that crap. To be completely honest, I'm more willing to work with the Fallen than I am the Cabal. So, we're gonna help out these guys while they try to kill me. Because, to be completely honest, I'm 10 times worse than the Cabal are to these guys. We're kind of infamous for just eradicating like tens of hundreds of species, so we're kind of worse than the Nazis, technically, if you think about it. The Guardians really are kind of like the best at being moral. So yeah. Gonna kill Cabal and help Fallen, while my teammates kill Fallen. And you can't no-scope, apparently. That's something I'm realizing about myself. No-scoping is not in my range of abilities yet. Oof. I was trying to be nice. Ouch. So yeah, he's got this. Ooh, and I got that. Loot. Which is really all you're here for, ever, really. So these are called public events. It's basically where something crazy starts happening and you're just kind of asked to deal with it. So, in front of the Church Rebel, you're going to have to probably deal with a ether mining crew. Ether mining is something that the Fallen do because they also use substances to help themselves get empowered. I guess it's kind of like a drug, breathing fluid thing they produce, energy, whatever. Let's go find out. Sir, can you tell us about your ether?
Shut them down.
I don't think they're gonna tell me about their ether. The best thing about a Warlock is that you literally can just do this and you're a floating turret. So with ether mining, the benefit is if you really want glimmer, you blow up these things. These are what's drawing glimmer into that. It's converting the ether into a crystal, I believe. If that's how glimmer is produced. I think that's how it's produced. Hey sir, I'm working here. Get out of here. So yeah, usually what you end up doing when you're doing this job is you just end up defending against their waves. They're usually trying to recover their stuff. You destroy their stuff. Ah! Don't know how I died. Probably because I suck. I mean, I didn't want to have to use the sword, but I mean, you can cut people off at the torso much easier than, you know, punching them to death. Oh, doop 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 doop, coming along to go and kill some of you. I love it. Ether thing is going to be behind here, most likely. Ow. Speedy boy. See? Mobility comes in handy. Yep. Ether core. Sorry, buddies. Business. Wait, did something drop? No, it just went to a different location. Okay, that's right. I was like, it couldn't be done already. Or was I just moving too slow? Ho 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 ho! Oh yeah, now I know how warlocks do it. Working on something. Just gonna bash that thing in. Fonzie. There we go. Now I can focus on you boys. Pull out the sniper rifle and watch them scatter. Oh wow. About to get killed by a shank. Never let that happen. Whoa! Forgot about you. Ah, I forgot to blow up that one. Darn.
A tricky business, mining glimmer without a drill. Good work. Clearly you're someone worth knowing, and I flatter myself that I might be the same to you. Stop by.
Got the pet? Exactly. Back up. So yeah. Welcome to Earth. It's marvelous, right? And always remember to go to church before you leave. If anything, gives you a place to read. And peace. So yeah, that was kind of an introduction to the Fallen, like a ball. Told you guys about armor arrangements. Let's go into intermission. We're gonna go to the farm. As we go to the farm, I'm gonna go and listen to something. Figure, why not have a lecture? See if I can apply whatever we're listening to what we're playing. So this is going to be a couple of chapters taken from the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is one of the Apocrypha books. Every time people are like, oh, they take books out of the Bible, they usually don't know what they're talking about, because the Book of Enoch's mentioned in the Bible. The reason why it's out of the Bible is it's because it has nothing to do with saving humanity. So they take it out of the Bible because it's really more so talking about how humanity judges angels and how God wants humanity to be better. So it's not really focused on how humanity is being redeemed. It's more so focused on how humanity has already been chosen, created by God. It's basically a reinforcement of Genesis. So it's more so considered that the account in Genesis is all you really need about Enoch. And the discrepancies between why people don't understand a lot about why Enoch did the things he did and what the whole situation was with Noah. The Book of Enoch really gets into that kind of stuff, but you also have to realize that there were like 3 different versions of the Book of Enoch. That's another reason why Christians were like, even by Christians' time, they were like, okay, anything that we know has been modified from the different texts that we have, we're not going to use. And that's a leftover tradition from the rabbis. So, I mean, there was a lot of scriptural legacy that was put into the development of the original scrolls of the Christian New Torah. Sorry, I'm waiting to see if there's anything to start.
Excuse me, where was I? I need you all over here for a minute.
Sorry. So yeah, this is the farm. Again, you got yourselves one of the advanced frames, more so closer to like how Exos look. Civilians, refugees.
Checking right away.
Got another mailbot. Don't think this one's an MKD, I think it's named a different one. Yeah, Darby. Ooh, I like. Alright. So yeah, this is the farm. That's a shard of the Traveler. When the Traveler arrived on Earth, it started a golden age, right? But when the darkness arrived, it mollywopped everybody's crap, and apparently the Traveler had to sacrifice itself. Now, when the Traveler sacrificed itself, it created offshoots of itself, and part of the offshoots are little ghosts like Higgins. Right, buddy? Hover's silently judging me. Anyways, because of that, there are places down there where you can go and find pieces of Traveler to gain extra power. When you do so, you become something stronger than the average Guardian. You become the Super Guardian! Nobody saw that. Anyways. So yeah, this is the farm. It's also the place where I can sit down and have nobody talk to me. Because thank goodness I don't want anybody to talk to me right now. Let me go find a corner to hide it. There we go. Peace and quiet. So yeah. Let's get going, because I need a break, and I also gotta prep for work. So before I go and hit this bounty time, in real time, I'm going to let you guys go and listen to an audio book. Quote stuff.
Section 7 of the Book of Enoch. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 46. The Head of Days and the Son of Man. And there I saw one who had a head of days, and his head was white like wool. And with him was another being whose countenance had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness, like one of the holy angels. And I asked the angel who went with me and showed me all the hidden things concerning that Son of Man, who he was, and whence he was, and why.
Okay,
Section 7 of the Book of Enoch. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 46. The Head of Days and the Son of Man. And there I saw one who had a head of days, and his head was white like wool. And with him was another being whose countenance had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness, like one of the holy angels. And I asked the angel who went with me and showed me all the hidden things concerning that Son of Man, who he was, and whence he was, and why he went with the head of days. And he answered and said unto me, This is the Son of Man who hath righteousness, with whom dwelleth righteousness, and who revealeth all the treasures of that which is hidden, because the Lord of spirits hath chosen him, and whose lot hath the preeminence before the Lord of spirits in uprightness forever. And this Son of Man whom thou hast seen shall raise up the kings and the mighty from their seats, and the strong from their thrones, and shall loosen the reins of the strong, and break the teeth of the sinners. And he shall put down the kings from their thrones and kingdoms, because they do not extol and praise him, nor humbly acknowledge whence the kingdom was bestowed upon them. And he shall put down the countenance of the strong, and shall fill them with shame. And darkness shall be their dwelling, and worms shall be their bed. And they shall have no hope of rising from their beds, because they do not extol the name of the Lord of spirits. And these are they who judge the stars of heaven, and raise their hands against the Most High, and tread upon the earth, and dwell upon it. And all their deeds manifest unrighteousness, and their power rests upon their riches. And their faith is in the gods which they have made with their hands, and they deny the name of the Lord of spirits. And they persecute the houses of his congregations, and the faithful who hang upon the name of the Lord of spirits. Chapter 47. The prayer of the righteous for vengeance, and their joy at its coming.
Okay, so the first part of this, I think, is really poignant, because if you apply it to what happened to us just in Destiny 2 alone, humanity has already been trampled upon multiple times, we've gotten our butts rocked to us, and what happens is when the Red War starts, we all lose our light because the Traveler is taken hostage by the Cabal. An army that satisfies itself on riches, if you look at Callus, or satisfies itself on conquest, if you look at Gaul. Both aspects of that empire came into our system and began to terrorize humanity as it began to try to crawl itself back out of really utter genocide and destruction. Xenocide, technically, because it was done by an alien force. These forces, and a large part of our enemies, don't respect the Traveler. They don't respect the light, and in fact, they prey upon light bearers, specifically to harness our powers and to harness the Traveler's energy to modify themselves, to increase their power, and to increase their territory, and to terrorize those who try to exist alongside them. I mean, we're not necessarily as bad, or we're not necessarily as good as them, or we're not better than them as humanity, but at the same time, I'm perfectly certain to think that we are more willing to work with these guys than these guys are willing to work with us at times. Or at least we're more willing to live and let live. That might be a strength, that might be also our general arrogance, because we kind of are semi-immortal at this point. But human beings who rely on the light, they're resurrected by the light in order to live this life where they can now avenge those who survive off of death and modification of the living to their own purposes. We can now reject that and fight against it rather than being unwilling pawns or just, helpless fodder, slaughtering or getting slaughtered by this darkness, So yeah.
Chapter 47. And in those days shall have ascended the prayer of the righteous, and the blood of the righteous from the earth before the Lord of spirits. In those days the holy ones who dwell above in the heavens shall unite with one voice, and supplicate and pray, and praise and give thanks and bless the name of the Lord of spirits, on behalf of the blood of the righteous which has been shed, and that the prayer of the righteous may not be in vain before the Lord of spirits, that judgment may be done unto them, and that they may not have to suffer forever. For him.
Opportunity with Kayla Fernandez.
I forgot about that. They have ads.
And all the elect shall stand before him on that day. And all the kings and the mighty and the exalted and those who rule the earth shall fall down before him on their faces, and worship and set their hope upon that Son of Man, and petition him, and supplicate for mercy at his hands. Nevertheless, that Lord of spirits will so oppress them, that they shall hastily go forth from his presence, and their faces shall be filled with shame, and the darkness grow deeper on their faces. And he will deliver them to the angels for punishment, to execute vengeance on them, because they have oppressed his children and his elect. And they shall be a spectacle for the righteous and for his elect.
Wow, 2 ads within like 30 seconds. YouTube's really persistent about making you have to watch an ad.
They shall rejoice over them, because the wrath of
do.
the Lord of Spirits resteth upon them, and his sword is drunk with their blood. And the righteous and elect shall be saved on that day, and they shall never thenceforward see the face of the sinners and unrighteous. And the Lord of Spirits will abide over them, and with that Son of Man they shall eat and lie down and rise up for ever and ever. And the righteous and elect shall have risen from the earth, and ceased to be of downcast countenance. And they shall have been clothed with garments of glory, and these shall be the garments of life from the Lord of Spirits. And your garment shall not grow old, nor your glory pass away before the Lord of Spirits. Chapter 63. In those days shall the mighty and the kings who possess the earth implore him, to grant them a little respite from his angels of punishment to whom they were delivered, that they might fall down and worship before the Lord of Spirits, and confess their sins before him. And they shall bless and glorify the Lord of Spirits, and say, Blessed is the Lord of Spirits, and the Lord of Kings, and the Lord of the mighty, and the Lord of the rich, and the Lord of glory, and the Lord of wisdom. And splendid in every secret thing is thy power from generation to generation, and thy glory forever and ever. Deep are all thy secrets and innumerable, and thy righteousness is beyond reckoning. We have now learnt that we should glorify and bless the Lord of Kings, and him who is King over all kings. And they shall say, Would that we had rest to glorify and give thanks and confess our faith before his glory. And now we long for a little rest, but find it not. We follow hard upon and obtain it not. And light has vanished from before us, and darkness is our dwelling place forever and ever. For we have not believed before him, nor glorified the name of the Lord of Spirits, nor glorified our Lord. But our hope was in the scepter of our kingdom, and in our glory. And in the day of our suffering and tribulation he saves us not, and we find no respite for confession. That our Lord is true in all his works, and in his judgments and his justice, and his judgments have no respect of persons. And we pass away from before his face on account of our works, and all our sins are reckoned up in righteousness. Now they shall say unto themselves, Our souls are full of unrighteous gain. But it does not prevent us from descending from the midst thereof into the burden of Sheol. And after that their faces shall be filled with darkness, and shame before that Son of Man, and they shall be driven from his presence, and the sword shall abide before his face in their midst.
Sword logic? So sword logic is basically the law that might makes right, Darwinism, evolution. That the process is that species that wish to survive must do what they must in order to survive. So the Guardians have begun to apply sword logic largely because we had to in order to fight the Hive on their level. The Hive were just kicking our butts, ripping our light from us, massacring our troops every time we went over there, beating us at soccer. So yeah, what ended up happening is that we ended up utilizing a lot of the darkness's tendencies. And we blurred the line in order to develop and grow and harness the darkness, hopefully to repurpose it toward the purposes of the light. Like redirecting the current or the flow of a river. By blocking it and redirecting it. There's a point where you have to stop yourself and ask yourself, am I using the darkness too much? And when you do that, it allows you to, prevent yourself from, I guess, becoming an agent of evil, like the Shadows of Yore. In fact, maybe we'll relate to some of that lore later. But anyways.
Thus spake the Lord of Spirits. This is the ordinance and judgment with respect to the mighty and the kings and the exalted, and those who possess the earth before the Lord of Spirits. Section 9 of the Book of Enoch. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 69. And there was great joy amongst them, and they blessed and glorified and extolled, because the name of that Son of Man had been revealed unto them. And he sat on the throne of his glory, and the sum of judgment was given unto the Son of Man. And he caused the sinners to pass away and be destroyed from off the face of the earth. And those who have led the world astray, with chains shall they be bound, and in their assemblage place of destruction shall they be imprisoned, and all their works vanish from the face of the earth. And from henceforth there shall be nothing corruptible. For that Son of Man is appeared, and has seated himself on the throne of his glory, and all evil shall pass away from before his face. And the word of that Son of Man shall go forth and be strong before the Lord of Spirits. This is the third parable of Enoch. Chapter 70. The final translation of Enoch. Chapter 70. And it came to pass after this, that his name during his lifetime was raised aloft to that Son of Man, and to the Lord of Spirits from amongst those who dwell on the earth. And he was raised aloft on the chariots of the Spirit, and his name vanished among them. And from that day I was no longer numbered amongst them. And he set me between the two winds, between the north and the west, where the angels took the cords to measure for me the place for the elect and righteous. And there I saw the first fathers and the righteous who from the beginning dwell in that place.
So yeah, I think a large aspect of what the Traveler has done in our lives can be really lined up with biblical worldview. Which is interesting because it then puts this whole idea of the darkness coming and us having to utilize those powers more really into perspective. What is it that we're really trying to accomplish if we start utilizing the darkness and becoming like the darkness? Maybe Bungie will play that in a way that maybe people might not like, but would be interesting to see. Rewarding certain players for not caving while at the same time allowing other players to go and indulge on their other instincts. So yeah. I'd say also, another thing that I noticed too is that when Gaul was consumed by light, which is something you can see if you watch the final cutscene of the Red War, which I think I actually have the full Red War on that, so maybe it is just completely on one video, which gives you guys more of a reason to watch it. But yeah, so when Gaul was destroyed by us, he was rebirthed in light, and he told the Traveler, he basically tried to force the Traveler to acknowledge him. And if the Traveler is thus a vessel by which Christ is returning to the earth, if I were to be a Christian in Destiny, then that would be like trying to tell Christ to acknowledge you because of might and because of your own power and basically lust for basically your pride of life. And that was what Gaul was full of. In fact, his pride of life is ultimately what led him to betray his mentor, led him to make the tactical errors that he finally did, and led him to ultimately sabotage his own goals. But he did become entombed in light, and he had a physical form that was honestly probably going to kick our butts. But then the Traveler vaporized him, which leads to a question. These shards of the Traveler have infinite power, but they're not the Traveler's power. And there's something inside the Traveler that is a container. At least, in my worldview, in headcanon. I think there's something inside of the Traveler. And in general, when you're thinking about the Traveler, perhaps it can manifest itself as an entity with a physical presence. Perhaps the image from which we are taking on anytime we utilize the light. Something that fundamentally creates Higgins to be the versatile creature that he is. Hi. So, what I think is interesting is that if we were to take the biblical worldview, it makes us really have to think twice about a lot of the associations we've been making, but more so what our purpose is in these associations. Oof. So because of this, I think we have to ask ourselves a better question. What should the character of a Guardian be then, if we're going to try this out? And this is kind of going to go into my live stream video that I'll hopefully have time to make if I can shower and get myself ready for work and eat and stuff soon. But that's why we're at the farm. I'm going to go and restock here, go eat, prepare myself to go to work. Won't be filming that for you guys. But I will be back on later tonight, probably live streaming from here, just because I usually unwind playing video games, so if I'm going to do lectures and stuff, it might be easier just to do it through here, since a lot of the stuff that I do theology-wise, I often do while I'm playing video games anyways, so it'll probably be a lot of you guys listening to things with me, and me talking about them with you guys while I kill things and feel slightly bad for it. Maybe not kill things, and show you guys how not to kill things in this world, while still gaining power. And loot! Anyways. So yeah. I think the next question we gotta ask ourselves is, what is the character that a Guardian should have? I mean, yeah, the Vanguard has something to say to that, but whatever. I love them. But they're kind of dorks. So let's go into something a little bit more ancient.
C.H. Spurgeon preached this message on November 22nd, 1855, at the New Park Street Chapel. It is entitled, The Character of Christ's People, and the text is John 17, verse 16. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Christ's prayer was for a special people. He declared that he did not offer a universal intercession. I pray for them, said he. I pray not for the world, but for them which thou hast given me, for they are thine. In reading this beautiful prayer, one question arises to our minds. Who are the people that are described as them, or they? Who are these favored individuals who share a Savior's prayers, are recognized by a Savior's love, have their names written on the stones of his precious breastplate, and have their characters and their circumstances mentioned by the lips of the high priest before the throne on high? The answer to that question is supplied by the words of our text. The people for whom Christ prays are an unearthly people. They are a people somewhat above the world, distinguished altogether from it. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. I shall treat my text first of all doctrinally, second experimentally, and thirdly practically. First, we shall take our text and look at it doctrinally. The doctrine of it is that God's people are a people who are not of the world, even as Christ was not of the world. It is not so much that they are not of the world, as that they are not of the world even as Christ was not of the world. This is an important distinction, for here there are to be found certain people who are not of the world, and yet they are not Christians. Amongst these I would mention sentimentalists, people who are always crying and groaning in an affected, sentimental way. Their spirits are so refined, their characters are so delicate, that they could not attend to ordinary business. They would think it rather degrading to their spiritual nature to attend to anything connected with the world. They live much in the air of romances and novels, love to read things that fetch tears from their eyes. They would like continually to live in a cottage near a wood, or to inhabit some quiet cave where they could read Zimmerman on Solitude forever. For they feel that they are not of the world. The fact is, there is something too flimsy about them to stand the wear and tear of this wicked world. They are so preeminently good that they cannot bear to do as we poor human creatures do. I have heard of one young lady who thought herself so spiritually minded that she could not work. A very wise minister said to her, "That is quite correct. You are so spiritually minded that you cannot work." "Very well. You are so spiritually minded that you shall not eat unless you do." That brought her back from her great spiritual mindedness. There is a stupid sentimentalism that certain persons nurse themselves into. They read a parcel of books that intoxicate their brains, and then fancy that they have a lofty destiny. These people are not of the world, truly. But the world does not want them, and the world would not miss them much if they were clean gone forever. There is such a thing as being not of the world, from a high order of sentimentalism, and yet not being a Christian after all. For it is not so much being not of the world, as being not of the world even as Christ was not of the world. There are others too, like your monks and those other mad individuals of the Catholic Church who are not of the world. They are so awfully good that they could not live with us sinful creatures at all. They must be distinguished from us altogether. They must not wear, of course, a boot that would at all approach to a worldly shoe, but they must have a sole of leather strapped on with 2 or 3 thongs, like the far-famed Father Ignatius. They could not be expected to wear worldly coats and waistcoats, but they must have peculiar garb, cut in certain fashions, like the Passionists. They must wear particular dresses, particular garments, particular habits. And we know that some men are not of the world by the peculiar mouthing they give to all their words, the sort of sweet, savory, buttery flavor they give to the English language, because they think themselves so eminently sanctified that they fancy it would be wrong to indulge in anything in which ordinary mortals indulge. Such persons are, however, reminded that their being not of the world has nothing to do with it. It is not being not of the world, so much as being not of the world even as Christ was not of the world. This is the distinguishing mark, being different from the world in those respects in which Christ was different. Not making ourselves singular in unimportant points, as those poor creatures do, but being different from the world in those respects in which the Son of God and the Son of Man, Jesus Christ, our glorious exemplar, was distinguished from the rest of mankind. And I think this will burst out in great clearness and beauty to us, if we consider that Christ was not of the world in nature, that he was not of the world again in office, and above all, that he was not of the world in his character. First, Christ was not of the world in nature. What was there about Christ that was worldly? In one point of view, his nature was divine. And as divine, it was perfect, pure, unsullied, spotless. He could not descend to things of earthliness and sin. In another sense, he was human, and his human nature, which was born of the Virgin Mary, was begotten of the Holy Ghost, and therefore was so pure that in it rested nothing that was worldly. He was not like ordinary men. We are all born with worldliness in our hearts. Solomon well says, "Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child." It is not only there, but it is bound up in it. It is tied up in his heart, and is difficult to remove. And so with each of us. When we were children, earthliness and carnality were bound up in our nature. But Christ was not so. His nature was not a worldly one. It was essentially different from that of everyone else, although he sat down and talked with them. Mark the difference. He stood side by side with a Pharisee, but everyone could see that he was not of the Pharisee's world. He sat by a Samaritan woman, and though he conversed with her very freely, who is it that fails to see that he was not of that Samaritan woman's world, not a sinner like her? He mingled with the publicans, nay, he sat down at the publicans' feast, and he ate with publicans and sinners. But you could see by the holy actions and the peculiar gestures he there carried with him, that he was not of the publicans' world, though he mixed with them. There was something so different in his nature that you could not have found an individual in all the world whom you could have set beside him and said, "There, he is of that man's world." Nay, not even John, though he leaned on his bosom and partook very much of his Lord's Spirit, was exactly of that world to which Jesus belonged. For even he once in his Boanergian spirit said words to this effect, "Let us call down fire from heaven on the heads of those who oppose thee," a thing that Christ could not endure for a moment, and thereby prove that he was something even beyond John's world. Well, beloved, in some sense, the Christian man is not of the world even in his nature. I do not mean in his corrupt and fallen nature, but in his new nature. There is something in a Christian that is utterly and entirely distinct from that of anybody else. Many persons think that the difference between a Christian and a worldling consists in this. One goes to chapel twice on a Sabbath day, another does not go but once, or perhaps not at all. One of them takes the sacrament, the other does not. One pays attention to holy things, the other pays very little attention to them. But, beloved, that does not make a Christian. The distinction between a Christian and a worldling is not merely external, but internal. The difference is one of nature, not of act. A Christian is as essentially different from a worldling as a dove is from a raven, or a lamb from a lion. He is not of the world even in his nature. You could not make him a worldling. You might do what you liked. You might cause him to fall into some temporary sin, but you could not make him a worldling. You might cause him to backslide, but you could not make him a sinner as he used to be. He is not of the world by his nature. He is a twice-born man. In his veins run the blood of the royal family of the universe. He is a nobleman. He is a heaven-born child. His freedom is not merely a bought one, but he hath his liberty by his newborn nature. He is begotten again unto a lively hope. He is not of the world by his nature. He is essentially and entirely different from the world. There are persons in this chapel now who are more totally distinct from one another than you can even conceive. I have some here who are intelligent, and some who are ignorant, some who are rich, and some who are poor. But I do not allude to those distinctions. They all melt away into nothing in that great distinction, dead or alive, spiritual or carnal, Christian or worldling. And oh, if ye are God's people, then ye are not of the world in your nature, for ye are not of the world, even as Christ was not of the world. Again, you are not of the world in your office. Christ's office had nothing to do with worldly things. Art thou a king then? Yes, I am a king, but my kingdom is not of this world. Art thou a priest? Yes, I am a priest, but my priesthood is not the priesthood which I shall soon lay aside, or which shall be discontinued as that of others has been. Art thou a teacher? Yes, but my doctrines are not the doctrines of morality, doctrines that concern earthly dealings, between man and man simply. My doctrine cometh down from heaven. So Jesus Christ, we say, is not of the world. He had no office that could be termed a worldly one, and he had no aim which was in the least worldly. He did not seek his own applause or his own fame or his own honor. His very office was not of the world. And O believer, what is thy office? Hast thou none at all? Why, yes, man. Thou art a priest unto the Lord thy God. Thy office is to sacrifice prayer and praise each day. Ask a Christian what he is. Say to him, what is your official standing? What are you by office? Well, if he answers you properly, he will not say, I am a draper or druggist or anything of the sort. No. He will say, I am a priest unto my God. The office unto which I am called is to be the salt of the earth. I am a city set on a hill, a light that cannot be hid. That is my office. My office is not a worldly one. Whether yours be the office of the minister or the deacon or the church member, ye are not of this world in your office, even as Christ was not of the world. Your occupation is not a worldly one. Again, ye are not of the world in your character, for that is the chief point at which Christ was not of the world. And now, brethren, I shall have to turn somewhat from doctrine to practice before I get rightly to this part of the subject. For I must reprove many of the Lord's people that they do not sufficiently manifest that they are not of the world in character, even as Christ was not of the world. Oh, how many of you there are who will assemble around the table at the supper of your Lord, who do not live like your Savior. How many of you there are who join our church and walk with us, and yet are not worthy of your high calling and profession. Mark you churches all around, and let your eyes run with tears when you remember that of many of their members it cannot be said, ye are not of the world, for they are of the world. O my hearers, I fear many of you are worldly, carnal, and covetous, and yet ye join the churches and stand well with God's people by a hypocritical profession. O ye whitewashed sepulchres, ye would deceive the very elect. Ye make clean the outside of the cup and platter, but your inward part is very wickedness. Oh, that a thundering voice might speak this to your ears. Those whom Christ loves are not of the world, but ye are of the world. Therefore ye cannot be his, even though ye profess so to be. For those that love him are not such as you. Look at Jesus' character, how different from every other man's, pure, perfect, spotless. Even such should be the life of the believer. I plead not for the possibility of sinless conduct in Christians, but I must hold that grace makes men to differ, and that God's people will be very different from other kinds of people. The servant of God will be God's man everywhere. As a chemist, he could not indulge in any tricks that such men might play with their drugs. As a grocer, if indeed it be not a phantom that such things are done, he could not mix sloe leaves with tea, or red lead in the pepper. If he practiced any other kind of business, he could not for a moment condescend to the petty little shifts called methods of business. To him it is nothing what is called business. It is what is called God's law. He feels that he is not of the world. Consequently, he goes against its fashions and its maxims. A singular story is told of a certain Quaker. One day he was bathing in the Thames, and a waterman called out to him, "Ah, there goes the Quaker." "How do you know I'm a Quaker?" "Because you swim against the stream. It is the way the Quakers always do." That is the way Christians always ought to do, to swim against the stream. The Lord's people should not go along with the rest in their worldliness. Their character should be visibly different. You should be such men that your fellows can recognize you without any difficulty and say, "Such a man is a Christian." Ah, beloved, it would puzzle the angel Gabriel himself to tell whether some of you are Christians or not, if he were sent down to the world to pick out the righteous from the wicked. None but God could do it, for in these days of worldly religion, they are so much alike. It was an ill day for the world when the sons of God and the daughters of men were mingled together. And it is an ill day now when Christians and worldlings are so mixed that you cannot tell the difference between them. God save us from a day of fire that may devour us in consequence. But, oh, beloved, the Christian will be always different from the world. This is a great doctrine, and it will be found as true in ages to come as in the centuries which are past. Looking back into history, we read this lesson. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. We see them driven to the catacombs of Rome. We see them hunted about like partridges. And wherever in history you find God's servants, you can recognize them by their distinct, unvarying character. They were not of the world, but were a people scarred and peeled, a people entirely distinct from the nations. And if in this age there are no different people, if there are none to be found who differ from other people, there are no Christians. For Christians will always be different from the world. They are not of the world, even as Christ is not of the world. This is the doctrine. But now for treating the text experimentally. Do we, dearly beloved, feel this truth? Has it ever been laid to our souls so that we can feel it is ours? They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Have we ever felt that we are not of the world? Perhaps there is a believer sitting in a pew tonight who says, well, sir, I can't say that I feel as if I was not of the world, for I have just come from my shop, and worldliness is still very much hanging about me. Another says, I have been in trouble, and my mind is very much harassed. I cannot feel that I am different from the world. I am afraid that I am of the world. But, beloved, we must not judge ourselves rashly, because just at this moment we discern not the spot of God's children. Let me tell you, there are always certain testing moments when you can tell what kind of stuff a man is made of. Two men are walking. Part of the way their road lies side by side. How do you tell which man is going to the right and which to the left? Why, when they come to the turning point. Now, tonight is not a turning point, for you are sitting with worldly people here. But at other times, we may distinguish. Let me tell you one or two turning points when every Christian will feel that he is not of the world. One is when he gets into very deep trouble. I do believe and protest that we never feel so unearthly as when we get plunged down into trouble. Ah, when some creature comfort hath been swept away, when some precious blessing hath withered in our sight, like the fair lily snapped at the stalk, when some mercy has been withered like Jonah's gourd in the night, then it is that the Christian feels, I am not of the world. His cloak is torn from him, and the cold wind whistles almost through him, and then he says, I am a stranger in the world, as all my fathers were. Lord, thou hast been my dwelling place in all generations. You have had at times deep sorrows. Thank God for them. They are testing moments. When the furnace is hot, it is then that the gold is tried best. Have you felt at such a time that you were not of the world? Or have you rather sat down and said, oh, I do not deserve this trouble? Did you break under it? Did you bow down before it and let it crush you while you cursed your Maker? Or did your spirit even under its load and still lift itself unto him like a man all dislocated on the battlefield whose limbs are cut away, but who still lifts himself up as best he can and looks over the field to see if there be a friend approaching? Did you do so? Did you lie down in desperation and despair? If you did that, methinks you are no Christian. But if there was a rising up, it was a testing moment, and it proved that you were not of the world, because you could master affliction, because you could tread it underfoot and say, when all created streams are dry, his goodness is the same. With this I well am satisfied, and glory in his name. But another testing moment is prosperity. Oh, there have been some of God's people who have been more tried by prosperity than by adversity. Of the two trials, the trial of adversity is less severe to the spiritual man than that of prosperity. As a finding pot for silver, so is a man to his praise. It is a terrible thing to be prosperous. You would need to pray to God not only to help you in your troubles, but to help you in your blessings. Mr. Whitfield once had a petition to put up for a young man who had... Stop, you will think it was for a young man who had lost his father or his property. No, the prayers of the congregation are desired for a young man who has become heir to an immense fortune, and who feels he has need of much grace to keep him humble in the midst of riches. That is the kind of prayer that ought to be put up, for prosperity is a hard thing to bear. Now, perhaps you have become almost intoxicated with worldly delights, even as a Christian. Everything goes well with you. You have loved, and you are loved. Your affairs are prosperous, your heart rejoices, your eyes sparkle. You tread the earth with a happy soul and a joyous countenance. You are a happy man, for you have found that even in worldly things, godliness with contentment is great gain. Did you ever feel, these can never satisfy? Give me Christ, or else I die. Did you feel that these comforts were nothing but the leaves of the tree, and not the fruit, and that you could not live upon mere leaves? Did you feel they were after all nothing but husks? Or did you not sit down and say, now, soul, take thine ease. Thou hast goods laid up for many years. Eat, drink, and be merry. If you did imitate the rich fool, then you were of the world. But if your spirit went up above your prosperity, so that you still lived near to God, then you proved that you were a child of God, for you were not of the world. These are testing points, both prosperity and adversity. Again, you may test yourselves in this way in solitude and in company. In solitude, you may tell whether you are not of the world. I sit me down, throw the window up, look out on the stars, and think of them as the eyes of God looking down upon me. And oh, does it not seem glorious at times to consider the heavens when we can say, ah, beyond those stars is my house not made with hands. Those stars are milestones on the road to glory, and I shall soon tread the glittering way, or be carried by seraphs far beyond them and be there. Have you felt in solitude that you are not of the world? And so again in company. Ah, beloved, believe me, company is one of the best tests for a Christian. You are invited to an evening party. Sundry amusements are provided which are not considered exactly sinful, but which certainly cannot come under the name of pious amusements. You sit there with the rest. There is a deal of idle chat going on. You would be thought puritanical to protest against it. Have you not come away, and notwithstanding all has been very pleasant, and friends have been very agreeable, have you not been inclined to say, "Oh, that does not do for me. I would rather be in a prayer meeting. I would rather be in an old broken-down cow lodge with 6 old women, so long as I could be with the people of God, than in fine rooms with all the dainties and delicacies that could be provided without the company of Jesus. By God's grace, I will seek to shun all these places as much as possible." That is a good test. You will prove in this way that you are not of the world, and you may do so in a great many other ways which I have no time to mention. Have you felt this experimentally, so that you can say, "I know I am not of the world. I feel it. I experience it." Don't talk of doctrine. Give me doctrine ground into experience. Doctrine is good, but experience is better. Experimental doctrine is the true doctrine which comforts and which edifies. And now lastly, we must briefly apply this in practice. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. And first allow me, man or woman, to apply this to thee. Thou who art of the world, whose maxims, whose habits, whose behavior, whose feelings, whose everything is worldly and carnal, list thee to this. Perhaps thou makest some profession of religion. Hear me then. Thy boasting of religion is empty as a phantom, and shall pass away when the sun rises, as the ghosts sleep in their grave at the crowing of the cock. Thou hast some pleasure in that professioned religion of thine wherewith thou art arrayed, which thou carriest about thee as a cloak, and usest as a stalking horse to thy business, and a net to catch the honor in the world. And yet thou art worldly like other men. Then I tell thee, if there be no distinction between thyself and the worldly, the doom of the worldly shall be thy doom. If thou wert marked and watched, thy next door tradesman would act as thou dost, and thou actest as he does. There is no distinction between thee and the world. Hear me then. It is God's solemn truth. Thou art none of his. If thou art like the rest of the world, thou art of the world. Thou art a goat, and with goats thou shalt be cursed, for the sheep can always be distinguished from the goats by their appearance. O ye worldly men of the world, ye carnal professors, ye who crowd our churches and fill our places of worship, this is God's truth. Let me say it solemnly. If I should say it as I ought, it would be weeping tears of blood. Ye are, with all your profession, in the gall of bitterness. With all your boastings, ye are in the bonds of iniquity. For ye act as others, and ye shall come where others come, and it shall be done with you as with more notorious heirs of hell. There is an old story which was once told of a dissenting minister. The old custom was that a minister might stop at an inn and not pay anything for his bed or his board. And when he went to preach from place to place, he was charged nothing for the conveyance in which he rode. But on one occasion, a certain minister stopped at an inn and went to bed. The landlord listened and heard no prayer. So when he came down in the morning, he presented his bill. "Oh, I'm not going to pay for that, for I am a minister." "Ah," said the landlord, "you went to bed last night like a sinner, and you shall pay this morning like a sinner. I will not let you go." Now it strikes me that this will be the case with some of you when you come to God's bar. Though you pretended to be a Christian, you acted like a sinner, and you shall fare like a sinner too. Your actions were unrighteous. They were far from God. You shall have a portion with those whose character was the same as yours. Be not deceived. It is easy to be so. God is not mocked, though we often are, both minister and people. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And now we want to apply this to many true children of God who are here by way of caution. I say, my brother Christian, you are not of the world. I am not going to speak hardly to you, because you are my brother. And in speaking to you, I speak to myself also, for I am as guilty as thou art. Brother, have we not often been too much like the world? Come, let me ask myself, are there not too many idle words that I say? Aye, that there are. And do I not sometimes give occasion to the enemy to blaspheme, because I am not so different from the world as I ought to be? Come, brother, let us confess our sins together. Have we not been too worldly? Ah, we have. Oh, let this solemn thought cross our minds. Suppose that after all we should not be his. For it is written, ye are not of the world. Oh, God, if we are not right, make us so. Where we are a little right, make us still more right. Where we are wrong, amend us. Allow me to tell a story to you. I told it when I was preaching last Tuesday morning, but it is worth telling again. There is a great evil in many of us, being too light and frothy in our conversation. A very solemn thing once happened. A minister had been preaching in a country village very earnestly and fervently. In the midst of his congregation there was a young man who was deeply impressed with a sense of sin under the sermon. He therefore sought the minister as he went out, in hopes of walking home with him. They walked till they came to a friend's house. On the road the minister talked about anything except the subject on which he had preached, though he had preached very earnestly and even with tears in his eyes. The young man thought within himself, "Oh, I wish I could unburden my heart and speak to him, but I cannot." He does not say anything now about what he spoke of in the pulpit. When they were at supper that evening, the conversation was very far from what it should be, and the minister indulged in all kinds of jokes and light sayings. The young man had gone into the house with eyes filled with tears, feeling like a sinner should feel. As soon as he got outside, after the conversation, he stamped his foot and said, "It is a lie from beginning to end. That man has preached like an angel, and now he has talked like a devil." Some years after, the young man was taken ill, and sent for this same minister. The minister did not know him. "Do you remember preaching at such and such a village?" asked the young man. "I do." Your text was very deeply laid to my heart. Thank God for that, said the minister. Do not be so quick about thanking God, said the young man. Do you know what you talked of that evening afterwards when I went to supper with you? Sir, I shall be damned, and I will charge you before God's throne with being the author of my damnation. On that night I did feel my sin, but you were the means of scattering all my impressions. That is a solemn thought, brother, and teaches us how we should curb our tongues, especially those who are so light-hearted after solemn services and earnest preachings, that we should not betray levity. Oh, let us take heed that we are not of the world, even as Christ was not of the world. And, Christian, lastly, by way of practice, let me comfort thee with this. Thou art not of the world, for thy home is in heaven. Be content to be here a little, for thou art not of the world. Thou shalt go up to thine own bright inheritance by and by. A man in traveling goes into an inn. It is rather uncomfortable. Well, says he, I shall not have to stay here many nights. I have only to sleep here tonight. I shall be at home in the morning, so that I don't care much about one night's lodging being a little uncomfortable. So, Christian, this world is never a very comfortable one. But recollect, you are not of the world. This world is like an inn. You are only lodging here a little while. Put up with a little inconvenience, because you are not of the world, even as Christ is not of the world. By and by, up yonder, you shall be gathered into your Father's house, and there you will find that there is a new heaven and a new earth provided for those who are not of the world. This message, the character of Christ's people, was preached by Charles Haddon Spurgeon on November 22nd, 1855. This is Charles Kelch inviting you to join me again for another message from the Prince of Preachers.
Can't walk around the farm without hearing Cade's name.
Because you keep saying it, homie, every time I come here. Anyways, so. What I got from that is that, because again, I'm a guardian, technically, and a Christian in this world. We're playing as if we're LARPing. The goal is to be more than humanity, but still be connected to humanity. Acknowledge that we're human, that we're prone to having fear, not wanting to die, not wanting to lose things, loving, valuing things, having pride, envy, stuff like that. We're going to have drawing towards the darkness, but we cannot cede ourselves and let our entire nature and conduct be led by it. We can't become ruthless, we can't become merciless. We can't become like our enemies. And so our powers have to be used sparingly. There's no use killing these guys, you know? They're more scared of me than I need to be of them. I can resurrect the power of the light right now. There's no need for it. I'm not even trying to accomplish anything if I did so. Even if I was trying to go and gain power, I should be going after targets that have consequence. And in theory, if I did that, that actually would be promoting the good of the light, while also at the same time technically applying the sword logic while breaking it. Shield logic. Shield logic is the same thing as sword logic because it has to counter the sword. It also has to counter the arrow and everything else. Shield logic is more adaptable to the light and life. It allows you to utilize the powers of the darkness like Void, or like the incoming Shatter that's going to come and fall. And hopefully it will allow us to be able to prevent becoming just merciless, like, killing machines. Ideally, I can get the Cabal and Fallen to stop fighting me so that we can all fight the darkness. Well then, better.
mining.
Shut them down.
That's a pretty pile of glimmer. Hold them off while I transmit.
Yeah, so the goal is just try not to be a ruthless murdering machine. Shoot. Though I guess there's gonna have to be a little bit of balancing out. You have to decide who's making a choice to come after you, who's not making a choice to come after you. Who's making a choice to come after somebody that you need to protect, and who can handle themselves.
One giant heap of glimmer incoming.
My word, you'll have to keep some for yourself, you know. Clearly you're someone worth knowing, and I flatter myself that I might be the same to you. Stop by.
Looking for something?
Honestly, no. Pretty much I accomplished everything I wanted to do. So far, whew. I actually think I tired myself out doing all this. Good job, everybody. We made it. So yeah. Honestly, I think we've talked about everything. This is a decent enough introduction, I think. And we have 71 days for the next season, so we got time to talk about a lot. So yeah. I'm gonna go get started on my day. I will see you guys later. I'm about to head to the farm. Deuces.